Our societies are attached to a phrase which it can be a bit too easy to assume we understand. We hear it at graduations, in conversations with friends, and read it in books that promise a better life. The talk is of people growing and of having grown, a concept that alludes to some kind of important internal psychological evolution and development. But what does this truly mean? When we move beyond the comforting cliche, what does growing in this sense really involve? What is it that we are developing a capacity to do when we so-called grow? What are we leaving behind in the process? And crucially, if this is such a vital task, how might we train ourselves to grow a little more and perhaps a little more quickly? What we may essentially be pointing to with the idea of growth is the monumental ability to stop responding to situations in the present through lenses unconsciously distorted by our psychological histories. It is about recognizing and then gently setting aside the powerful quirks and biases bequeathed to us by our invariably somewhat complicated childhoods. Each of us carries an emotional blueprint drafted in our earliest years. This blueprint, filled with experiences of love, fear, security, or neglect, dictates our automatic reactions long into adulthood. It is not our fault that this blueprint exists, but it becomes our profound responsibility to learn how to read it. A person who truly grows is someone who has begun this work. They are able to look more fairly, more charitably, at other people and situations. They can recognize the extent to which they themselves might be aggravating conflict, heaping unwarranted suspicion, or even ruining their own chances at happiness. They understand that they might be reacting not to the person in front of them, but to a ghost from their pasta parent who was critical, a friend who betrayed them, a time when they felt deeply alone. Growth is the slow, deliberate process of separating the present reality from the echoes of past experiences of loneliness, fear, betrayal, and humiliation. Consider a simple, common scenario. A partner comes home late from work. The ungrown response, dictated by an old blueprint of insecurity, might be immediate suspicion and accusation. You don't care enough to call. Where were you? The underlying fear is one of abandonment and not being a priority. A person who has grown, however, has learned to insert a crucial pause between the trigger and their reaction. In that tiny sliver of time, they can check their first, unhelpful responses. They can reach for a more complicated, objective set of explanations. They might think, my first instinct is to feel angry and unseen. But is that the whole story? They realize it may not always have to be their companion's fault. Perhaps a mistake was, in this instance, entirely innocent: a dead phone battery, a terrible traffic jam, a demanding boss. They might even consider that their partner had a difficult day and need support, not a confrontation. In this space, it might become their role to say a small, disarming sorry for a harsh initial thought, or to simply ask, was it a rough day? They begin to understand that maybe they've misunderstood what was really being meant or not meant by the action. This is not weakness. This is profound emotional strength. To grow, then, is to acquire the courage for entirely new sorts of questions directed inward. These are not questions of blame, but of deep curiosity. What if, one might ask, I were repeatedly, unconsciously defending myself against closeness and hope? Perhaps the pattern of pushing people away isn't about their flaws, but about a deep-seated fear of being hurt again. The subconscious logic is brutally simple. If you never let anyone get truly close, you can never be devastated by their departure. Or another question, what if I was using busyness, this badge of modern honor, to block encounters with my own mind? The endless to-do lists, the back-to-back meetings, the constant scrolling, perhaps it all serves a purpose. To avoid the silence where feelings of sadness, emptiness, or regret might surface. And perhaps the most difficult questions, what if I secretly maneuvered to end a relationship prematurely because, deep down, I felt safer with the familiar feelings of isolation and rejection? Or what if I was consistently running away from opportunities to show myself authentically to other people out of a core belief that if they saw the real me, they would surely turn away? These questions can, in personal life be what we might in science describe as Copernican questions. Just as Copernicus fundamentally recentered our understanding of the cosmos, these questions involve a fundamental rethinking of one's place in the order of one's own emotional world. You cease to be the passive victim of external events and begin to see your own active role in the creation of your reality. The more one grows through this inquiry, the more one might have to give up a certain sort of brittle confidence and absolute certainty. This isn't a surrender to meekness or self-hatred, but an embrace of a newfound, liberating skepticism. It is a patient modesty and a humorous readiness to wryly acknowledge error and admit to fragility. A person who has grown might operate with a vivid sense of how much they misunderstand, how much of life is filtered through their unique and flawed perspective. They might develop a quiet appreciation for their own fear of intimacy and joy, recognizing it not as a personal failure, but as a protective mechanism that has simply outlived its usefulness. In conversation, this growth sounds like humility. They might more often say, "I don't know," and mean it. Or, "Let me perhaps think more about that," instead of offering a knee-jerk defense. And then, on really special, transformative occasions, they might utter the bravest words in the emotional vocabulary. I think you may have a point. This grown person may find themselves drawn to friendships built not on shared strengths and triumphs, but on a mutual recognition of vulnerability and anxiety, the very things they once tried so hard to hide. What spurs this profound and often difficult transformation? What is the catalyst for growth? Unfortunately, it is almost always pain. We rarely undertake this difficult internal work when things are going well. Our ego is a formidable fortress designed to protect us from uncomfortable truths. It takes a powerful force to breach its walls. Pain is that force. We grow because we were fired from a job we thought defined us. Then, already shattered, we are finally able to listen to the quiet feedback we've been ignoring for years and look at what colleagues might have found difficult about us. We grow because we lost a major love, a relationship we were sure was forever. And at last, as we weep in a corner of the airport lounge or the empty apartment, we see with painful clarity that we might have been far too guarded or unfairly demanding or perpetually frightened of true connection. We grow because, in a dark hour of need, we can't bear to be alone anymore. And in reaching out, we realize as if for the first time what friendship could really be for a shared sanctuary, not a performance. The greatest sign of growth, therefore, might be a quiet, calm readiness to take on board the full scale of one's own silliness. It's the acceptance of how many basic things about love, work, and life one is still learning. What a child in many ways one still is. A person who has grown won't see anything offensive at all in this observation. Indeed, they will stoically accept the idea that they have been very often and over some quite major things, if we can put this politely, profoundly, and consistently mistaken. And with this acceptance comes not despair, but a powerful new mission. They will be intensely committed to trying to be rather less of one in the precious time that remains. And in this acceptance lies the true beauty of growth. It is not a final destination, but a continuous, often humbling, journey toward a more authentic and compassionate self. With each step, we don't just become less mistaken. We become more of a humankinder to ourselves, more present for those we love, and more capable of navigating life's complexities with grace and wisdom. This is the promise of growth, a life lived with greater intention, deeper connection, and a quiet, profound peace. It is the most challenging, yet most rewarding work we will ever do. If you found this reflection on personal growth helpful and wish to explore more ideas for a wiser, more serene life, we invite you to subscribe to our channel. Join our community of thoughtful individuals on the journey to better understand ourselves and the world around us. Click the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video.